Hi guys, and welcome back to the build of Team Hamster Racing's first car. This time we're going to document how the cage went in. Having just picked it up, we started trial fitting it, and this is the trials and tribulations of this. Mounting up the cage now. The feet have all got to be located correctly. I need to get all the sound deadening and stuff off the material, get it all ground back so it's ready for welding. But one of the main things I found straight away is obviously the loom on this side, quite thin, move it out of the way. On the other side over there you can see the loom is massive, and between the cage and the door it just isn't enough room, so I need to thin out the loom, which is something I needed to do anyway. But so I've literally started from the tailgate end, stripped everything out of the boot lid that it doesn't need, everything out of the back. Basically we only really need the rear lights, obviously a bit of the battery wiring, but that'll all be reduced down, and a lightweight race battery will be going in realistically probably in there behind the passenger seat, somewhere all around there. So yeah, as you can see, this huge loom is basically stripped down to these couple of wires that I need for the tailgate and these few wires for the rear lights, and that's it. Everything else can come out of there, so that's what I'm doing now. See, dashboard completely out now, all the bars and everything out. Wiring paired back, pretty much finished on this side. Still a fair bit to do on that side just to get around the cage and stuff, but I'm sort of working from this corner across the car. Heater box obviously out around the dash. I've pulled the air conditioning evaporator out of it because there's going to be no use for that anymore. That is the last bit of the aircon system on the car. So top of the heater box off, pulled that out and then put it all back together again. Other than that, the rest of the heating system stays in the car as per the rules. So that's been basically a whole day of wire stripping. That side of the car is now completely stripped down to only the wires we need. The dash is all routed out. I've done this side, I've just got a few more wires you can see straggling out of the fuse board, and I'm just stripping the door wiring, so I've got everything out of this multi-block now. As you can see, I've just stripped this door, so all we've got left is the window motor and the window motor switch. And that's all we need in the door. Everything else can be operated manually, and that there is the amount of wire that comes out of just that door. So I think you can see there's a fair bit of wire been taken out of the car now. Hopefully none of the wrong ones. I have cut a couple that I didn't mean to, I don't deny. I'll have to reconnect those, but literally only the two so far. So hopefully it's all going to still work when we're finished. So removing the sound deadening now. I've seen a lot of people do this in different ways. Some people have used dry ice, which, you know, if you've got your own home science lab, that's fine. A lot of people use a hot air gun, but it does seem to take quite a while, and it seems to break up quite a lot. Personally, I use a very quick blast of the blowtorch. Obviously don't actually set it on fire, just get it nice and warm, and then it just lets the glue lift. Doesn't actually melt the sound deadening itself. Comes off nice and easy. You literally have the whole car done in a few minutes. First practice fit of the cage going in now. I have cut the bases to match, so that obviously the floor in most cars isn't flat. This one isn't flat at all, so I've had to cut in this shape. Same on the other side. Just tweak the back of it so that that sits at the angle of that firewall there. Cage now goes in. It is incredibly tight. It's just touching on the sides at the top there, only just. Obviously once that's trimmed slightly more and then all lined up, it should be good to go. So I've got the cage sitting over the holes where it needs to go on both of those feet. So I've now got the rear part going in. So I'm just cutting, or rather drilling, the holes through these feet that have to be welded to the floor. I found the easiest way to do that is drill one small pilot hole and then sort of work your way outwards, and as you drill a hole, put something through it to stop the plate from moving. So hopefully that should sit nicely like that, and then I can just mark up where the two front holes are, drill those, and then the plates can be welded on, and then the cage can be bolted to it. The cage has still got to go back have the powder coating finished. I did get it back off them before it was all done, just so we could get on with it. Dashboard will be going back in as well at the same time, and then it might actually start to look a bit like a car again. The feet are all welded in for the cage in all the corners. Started relooming the dash. Now put the cross brace and the heater and everything back in, and the dash is all rewired. Just got to put the actual skin on the top of it. Just starting to reloom the rear end. Shouldn't take too long really, but I've been doing the inside when it's been raining, so I can sit in the car and not get too wet. And then as it is at this moment not raining, I'm carrying on with the outside. Here we are inside the car, beautiful sunny morning, absolutely freezing cold though, you can probably see my breath there. First coat of paint done on the floor, not come out too badly actually because it's only one coat. Obviously still need to do the sides and the bottom of the footwells and stuff, but basically I've tried to paint everything that I'm not going to have easy access to once the cage is in. Still a couple of little bits to do, particularly the roof, which the sound deadening underneath the headlining is stuck on with a sticky sheet, and this stuff is really hard to get off. I've tried blowtorch, I've tried glue remover, solvent remover, brake cleaner, nothing's really touching it, so it's got to the point now where I'm having to just toffee wheel it off, and yeah, that makes a bit of a mess, but hey, at least it will all hoover up. I've only got to get the two front arms in on the cage and another coat of paint over everything, and then we'll be fitting seats. It is finally starting to get there. And another week or so has gone by, a lot of late night working, but we've got the roof finally painted on the inside. I'll probably have another coat once everything's in and nice and dry, but I'm quite pleased with the way this matte black's looking. And as you can see, front legs in, roof bars are all in, cage is actually bolted down. I've still got go around and tighten a few pieces up. Still got to put the bolts just through the floor on the front there, but it is in everywhere. Rear legs, front legs, everything in between. Door bars are on, the bar between the tops on, that all needs tightening up still, but it's in there. Just been, seeing as I am actually working in the daylight, I've been out doing some cutting, just made this panel up. That will get bolted down, or rather held on these studs eventually. So that's all the old battery box gone. Now that we know it is running, I can rip out all of the live leads and rewire them, so we can put the kill switch on the dash there. This live loom we've got here will be our only power supply. The one that originally runs under the car, we'll get rid of all of that. It's just in the way, a bit more weight. Beautifully sunny but freezing cold November Sunday morning. The cage is literally just being bolted down. The last few bits I've just tightened up all these top bolts. I've just got to do those front leg bolts, but before I carry on, because I do want this car to last as long as possible, I am putting some cavity wax into the cage mounts. So where I've welded them, and obviously you can't get in there to paint them afterwards, before I put the final bolt in on each side, hopefully with this clever special nozzle that sprays out in all directions, that should stop them from rusting. So today we're doing electrics. Now I know this is something that terrifies some people, but there really isn't a lot to it on this car because it's a relatively close to standard production car. That being said, there's an awful lot of electrics in it you can take out. This entire Tesco Bag for Life is full of the wiring I stripped out the car. That's all out of this car, nothing else. You don't need any of that. It's mostly radio, airbags, anything, seat heaters, anything that you had in your car that you don't need anymore. But the actual wiring that you've got to complete is relatively simple. So just making up dash panel, got this nice radio blanking plate, so we've got battery kill switch, oil pressure gauge, camera for the GoPro switch. One of the things a lot of people don't seem to know when they first set out doing this is your kill switch has to kill the engine. That's the function of it. So when it's thrown, the engine has to stop. If you just cut the power lead from the battery, on an awful lot of cars, they won't stop, because the alternator's running, alternator down there spinning away, producing 13 point something volts, and the car will just keep running on that. It doesn't actually matter that the storage device, the battery's gone. So what you have to do is cut the storage device as well as cut the engine control unit. So in this fuse box here, and thank you to some of the guys from the forum who made this a bit easy for me by just telling me which fuses we need to cut, you've got this little 5 fuse box here, number 3, so you don't even have to work out which end you're counting from, because it's the one in the middle. That red and white wire there, cut that, run either side of it to the back of the kill switch, because you've bought a decent kill switch that's got more than just the big terminals on it. And one of these, I haven't even worked out which way round it is yet, but one of these is a normally open switch, one of them is a normally closed switch. Have that on the normally open switch, so when the switch is thrown, it's closed, and the engine control unit wiring will simply go through the switch, then up to the engine control unit in there, and do its normal job. But when the switch is thrown in an emergency, or just when you're being scrutineered in the pits, it will cut the feed to the DME, the engine control unit, and that will turn the engine off. There is even, as you can see, I'm using this piece of wire that I've, second-hand wire from the car that was running something else. There's even a breather hole down here that goes into the footwell, so you haven't got to mess around cutting through looms and things. I'm literally just going to push that wire down there, cut this white and red wire, solder either end of this wire to it, and then when that wire reaches up into the dash, when it gets to this switch, I shall simply cut it, put a spade terminal on either side, plug it onto there. The only other thing I'm really running wires for is our oil pressure gauge, which is again in that panel, and the sensor itself is here. So if you look on the front of it, it's got symbols, so G for gauge, earth. So I'm simply going to run an earth off this earth terminal here, nice clean piece of wire, up and round, come up underneath, and then the wire from the gauge up. I'm probably just going to poke a tiny little hole through into the fuse box so I can run the wire down where this wire goes. I don't know, I might put it through where we've blanked off the aircon lines, haven't decided yet. I want to try and keep everything as waterproof as possible. Run that down into the car, onto the back of the gauge here. So you've got a positive, negative on the bottom, and then the line from the sensor with the S on it. Couldn't be a lot simpler. Wires for a bulb as well. When I stripped out the interior, as I say, I took out pretty much everything that we didn't need, so there's not a whole lot of wiring left in here. Now you look at the thickness of these looms, not a lot to it, and there's pretty much nothing on the center console, but I did save the wiring. There is a rear cigarette lighter 12 volt socket. I kept the wires for that. They're here with plenty of length still on them. I managed to trap them down there, but these are the wires that used to plug into that 12 volt socket. And the nice thing about that is you have a rather chunky earth, a rather chunky live, and then a little wire which is your interior lights, because the 12 volt socket used to light up. So I can use these 3 wires behind the dash to run anything like, so that gauge I'm putting in, we've got a nice earth there for it, and we've got a nice live for it, and we've got a light switch live, so we can put that to this bulb up here, run another earth to it, and then the lights come on that. We've got power supply there, so we'll probably use that for the GoPro as well, rather than running wires up and down the car. Can't think of anything much else that we're going to put in, but depending on what car you're building, I had to put a horn switch in on a Porsche that I built once before, because there just wasn't any horn contact up through the steering column, just because of the way the original spiral contact and stuff worked. You couldn't fit it through the steering wheel, didn't work, so we just put a switch on the dash, and again you could have used the live from that and then just run it to the horn contact. And interior finally going together. Cheap and crap old steering wheel I had lying around on, but I really don't know from where the position of the seat's going to be whether I want a deep dish one or not, so I thought I'd fit that one, just use that for a couple of days as I run the engine in, and see if the steering wheel's too close, too far away or what, and then I can buy one that I actually want. Just doing my kill switch, so I've got the switch all mounted up in the panel there, which obviously goes up here. You've got a live wire that used to run from the battery at the back all the way down and up into the fuse board on the left here. That I've now cut back, and I've just been knocking the terminal onto the end, so we've got a nice new terminal on there. That'll go up onto the back of the kill switch up here, and then there'll be another wire that will run out the back and go round to the engine, and then I shall use some of this spare live loom that we had. I'm going to mount the battery up around about here, the back of the passenger footwells. Got my cage there for the battery to go in, and then that's nice and easy because there's earth terminals here I can go straight onto. Don't have to do a huge amount of wiring to go with it. As I said the other day, I've still got the live. There is an earth, although you could take an earth from absolutely anywhere. I mean, there's a little earth stud there, but there's a live and an earth and a light illumination live there as well, so I can basically work everything on this panel off that. Another day finished. Darkness has come down while I've been working, but I think you can just about see. GoPro from wide remotes is now in, completely loomed up. It goes down, the little transformer for it is over there on the wheel arch, and wires just run up to the control panel on the dash. So if we press this button, LED comes on, GoPro beeps, and that's it. It's filming. LED seems a bit bright. I might have to change that out for a slightly darker one, particularly if we end up doing any night races. Give it another press. LED goes off. You can hear the camera beeping away, and it stops filming. I'm pleased that all works. I had to replace the switch. That had literally fallen to pieces in the pack, but only a little cheapo one, so not really surprised. Battery kill switch is all in and working now, so off, kills everything. It does stop the engine. Fire extinguisher pull here. Not connected up yet, but the fire extinguisher is going in as we speak. And the all pressure gauge works as well, so pleased about that. That's pretty much the electrics finished now. Only a couple of little bits to do. Battery is all in. So we've got nice lightweight race battery down there, screwed just in front of the fuel tank. Obviously on the other side is the bulkhead though, so hopefully that won't be of any issues. Yeah, heated fan and everything's working, as you can hear. Obviously we've got a few warning lights on the dash, but mostly because of the things that aren't on the car anymore. Harness mounts are all in on that side. Just turn that torch over, you can see. Harness mounts are in for the passenger seat. It's just because I had the car the other way around, so it's easier to work on that side. Back in the daytime, passenger seat is in, harness is all on. I did the passenger seat first simply because the car was the other way round and it wasn't up against the fence on that side, so it was easy enough to get in. Also, the passenger seat isn't having runners. Driver's seat, I've just finished prepping all this. The original seat runners won't just bolt straight to seat mount, so you have to cut out around where the mount fits over the mechanism, but also the whole top of it has to be modified, so I've had to cut it down flat and then weld the top back together again. But done both sides, seats now ready to go on. Obviously, because we're doing endurance racing, we will have different size drivers competing within one race. So it's quite important that we can move the seat quickly and easily in the space of a minute long pit stop and get people in and out without having to spend hours adjusting all the harnesses or moving the seat or anything. So that's why we've done it on this side. That seat's only really going to get used for corporate events and track days and things, so it doesn't matter so much if we have to mess around adjusting the harnesses to get people in and out of it. I don't want to put two sets of runners in if I don't have to, because obviously it's all weight, it's all more work. Dash is pretty much as together as it's going to be. I've just got the trim piece to put along the top there and a surround bit around the heater controls and the control panel, but that's all in, all the wiring's done, that's all working. Sensor console back in, about as clean as it's going to get, so it's almost a driver. And that was about it for videoing. The last 2 weeks have been incredibly busy. We've been to Bedford, done a nice shakedown, a bit of setup there. As you can see, we had a fair few issues. That's kind of what Shakedown's for, but we were out. Thanks to Javelin Track Days for organising it and for supplying us with the photos. The car did go round, had an awful lot of time in the pit sorting things out, but we did some nice setup changes, and towards the end of the day the car was working, or starting to work how we wanted. Then it was back again, back on the trailer, straight off to Uncle Luke's, ready to get turned into a race car. 1 week later it rolled out, and here it is, the all in a few seconds transformation from original road car to race car. Getting ready now for our second test at Snetterton in just over a week's time, where hopefully I'll actually get some video of it going round. But I can't say enough how pleased I am with the way the livery's turned out. Thanks for watching, guys. Please remember to support our sponsors. Each one of these companies has been incredibly helpful to us, and they all do work that I would use myself. I thoroughly support all of their brands. They're great companies. They've all had an input to the race car. Thanks again for watching, and thanks very much this time to Uncle Luke for the brilliant livery on the car.